This is the brand new Vauxhall Corsa-e, and in this video we're going to tell you everything you need to know about this new fully electric car. But before we start, make sure that you're subscribed to our channel because we have loads of videos that come out every week, and if you're in the market for a new car and want to save some money, go to whatcar.com because in less than 60 seconds we can find you the best deal. The new 6th generation Vauxhall Corsa has been developed alongside the new Peugeot 208, and both those cars are available with petrol, diesel or fully electric options. Now, both manufacturers have decided to keep the styling pretty uniform throughout the lineup. So according to them, their customers don't necessarily want an electric car that stands out massively from the rest of the lineup, which means that the only styling differences to point out between the petrol diesel Corsa and the fully electric Corsa-e is this tiny little E badge that's on the side of the car here. And also you'll notice if we come to the back of the car, it's called the Corsa-e. So next to the Corsa badge here, you have the same E symbol next to it. And in fact, all future fully electric Vauxhalls are going to have that E badge at the end of their name as well. So styling wise, there's nothing really to point out at all. But obviously the mechanicals are very different. And part of the reason for that is the lightest Corsa that you can buy is just under 1,000 kilograms. But the Corsa-e is about 400 kilograms heavier than that. So that's a considerable amount of extra weight. And to try and make sure that it doesn't have a completely rock solid ride, the suspension at the back has been completely reworked. So you'll also notice that you get a different alloy design than you do in the petrol and diesel Corsas, but also the rear wheels are 12 millimeters further apart and you have completely new suspension in the back as well. But this being an electric car, you need to know how far it'll go and how fast it'll go. So these are the key numbers behind the new Corsa-e. Underneath here, there's a 50 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery, which is exactly the same as what the Peugeot E208 gets. And just like the Peugeot E208, the Corsa-e will go from 0 to 62 miles per hour in 8.1 seconds, which admittedly isn't as quick as the more premium cars in the electric car sector, but is still fairly brisk by the class standards. And it will also travel up to 205 miles on a full charge, according to the WLTP test cycle. Now that isn't quite so far as the premium cars in this sector, like the Teslas and the Jaguar I-Pace, but compared to the rest of the class, is pretty impressive. As for charging times, well, the Corsa-e can charge up to 100 kilowatts, and that's the speed you'll get at fast chargers at motorway service stations. And it'll go from 0 to 80% in around 30 minutes using one of those. If you use a 3-pin plug, it'll take about 20 hours, but if you use a 7.4 kilowatt charger, then you'll go from 0 to 100% in around 8 hours, and if you use an 11 kilowatt wall charger, then that drops down to 5 hours and 15 minutes. Okay, so now let's take a closer look at the interior of the Corsa-e. Now, if you're familiar with the E208, the Peugeot, you'll see this has a completely different layout. Although there is one thing that's the same, and down here you can see it's exactly the same gear stick in both cars. But apart from that, there is a really different feel in this Vauxhall. And of course you have a normal sized steering wheel rather than the smaller one that you get in the Peugeot. You don't have that 3D iCockpit display that you get in the E208, and it just generally doesn't quite have the same visually arresting look as the new 208. And also the material consistency isn't quite there in the way that it is with the E208 either. So you got some nice gloss blacks, and some of the plastics feel fairly good, but there are some cheaper feeling places, like this drive mode selector here in particular just doesn't have the plushness of all the buttons that you find in the E208. And I will explain that there are a few different drive modes you can put it in. You have Sport, Normal and Eco. And in Sport you have full power, full torque available. In Normal you have slightly less, and in Eco you have less again. And that's because in those Normal and Eco modes you're going to prioritise range rather than performance. So that's pretty useful to have, and it's easy enough to cycle between them. You also have the option to control the level of regenerative braking. So that is when you lift off the accelerator, the car will slow itself down and harvest that energy for the battery. Now it's got D mode, so the normal drive mode. When you lift off the accelerator, you will notice the car slowing down. If you put it in B mode, then the regenerative braking will be more noticeable. So when you lift off the accelerator, it will just slow the car down more forcibly, again to try and harvest more energy and help the range of the car. Now, as for the display and the infotainment system, you have various different electric specific functions which help it stand out from the standard Corsa's interior. So the first one to point out is on the infotainment system. If you go to the map, you can see there's this blue circle around the map, and that is basically showing you how far the car can travel with the amount of charge that it has left. So that's a useful thing to have, and of course, like all other electric cars, it shows you where the nearest charging stations are as well. So it's useful, and you can see the screen. It's not one of the best systems around, just like we'd say about the Peugeot's infotainment system as well, but at least you have these physical shortcut buttons, so it's easy to use on the move. And one major advantage that the Corsa has over the Peugeot is that it's got physical air conditioning dials down here. In the Peugeot, the aircon is hidden within the infotainment system, but here, nice and simple, you can actually control it through the infotainment system itself using the touchscreen, but it's much simpler having these physical dials down here. So an interesting difference compared to the E208, and we'd say that the quality isn't quite so high. So that's everything you need to know about the new Vauxhall Corsa-e. Now, we can't drive it today, unfortunately, but we have driven the Peugeot 208 and the E208. And if you want to watch that video, then click on the link somewhere at the top of the screen where I can never remember which side it is. And there's also a link in the description below. If you've enjoyed this video, give it a like. If you've got any questions about the car, leave a comment below and we will get back to you. And make sure that you're subscribed to our channel because we have loads of videos coming out every week. And of course, don't forget, if you want to buy a new car and you want to save some money, go to whatcar.com and we can get you the best deal.